There is an unknown town in the Rockies. My family owns a mansion there, and I'm starting to really wish we didn't. Traskville was started in the late 1800s following the American Civil War. A mixture of former slaves and anti-slave whites had fled a southern town to hide in the mountains to survive the brutal war. Following the Confederate defeat, the community decided that rather than returning to their former lives, they would establish a settlement where they stood and start anew. At this time, the town contained around 300 settlers, including children, elders, and the rest. Over the next 100 years, the town grew into a retirement setting with ultra-rich buying expensive homes where they could access the beautiful mountains, Colorado ski resorts, fine dining, hiking, and more throughout the resort-like towns littering the Colorado Rockies. What set Traskville apart from most other resort towns like Vail, Aspen, Breckenridge, etc. was the fact that, well, Traskville wasn't actually a resort town. Most of the woods were uncharted, there was no local skiing, and few restaurants. Yes, the town was close to all these things, but the place itself was frankly boring. That being said, the rich still flocked there, with the amount of high-end homes ascending into the hundreds by the mid-90s. Around this time, the place gained some traction in the media, with theories popping up around why it attracted such a crowd, yet within a year it faded back into obscurity, and has remained that way ever since. That was it. That was all I could find in some old article from 2010. Sure, it had some other info talking about boring local history, or mentioning a few locations to visit in the town. Nothing else about the mysterious nature of the town, nothing about the disappearance of my aunt in 2008, whom I'd never met, and certainly nothing about what I heard when I was a child, what the other rich kids whispered of when the adults weren't listening, the beast in the woods. I know you're all here to hear about what happened today. The fucked up event that sent me to this town. The things I noticed upon my arrival that confirmed my suspicions about this town hiding secrets. But first, allow me to give a little introduction. My name is Kyle. I am 22 years old, and I'd be lying if I said I haven't had it easy my whole life. My family has old money, the kind of money that one member made, and has carried through generations. We have assets all over the world, a plethora of investments, and plenty of influence. I grew up easy, went to a school without the cost being an issue, graduated a year early, and now I'm working for my family, at least for the time being. Basically, I go around and check up on our assets, monitor some investments, and work with our partners. That sort of thing. The work is okay, but it's boring, and I wanted more. That's why when my aunt, yes, 2 aunts lived here, living in our Traskville mountain estate passed, I volunteered to take care of the incident. That's how the family is. When someone passes, we don't gather right away, we don't rush a funeral. We send someone out to take care of the incident. In this case, my job is to inspect the estate, access her will, acquire information about her life in the town, and eventually plan a funeral for her, another chance for the fam to network. For the death of many members of my family, this would be easy. As my father put it, your aunt will be a challenge. Apparently she rejected much of the ruthless family norm, she didn't play the way they wanted, she was odd, and that's why eventually she was relegated to our Traskville mountain estate. What came of her there, no one in the family is entirely sure, people hardly ever visited, and most pretended she wasn't a part of the family. I remember seeing her only once. I was 8 years old, and my family was attending the funeral of my uncle, her and my mother's oldest sibling. She spoke very little to anyone in the family, but she did say something to me. I was sitting alone on a bench as the grown-ups chatted. Always was a pretty quiet kid. I was staring at the mosaic tile floor, and there she was, standing before me. "Hello, Kyle," she said softly. I looked up a little shyly. "Aunt Rosa?" 8-year-old me was awkward enough without my mysterious aunt speaking to me for the first time. She smiled, and I saw kindness in her eyes, a kindness that resembled the rare looks I saw from my mother when she was alone with me. I could see the family resemblance. "I am not sure if I will see you anytime soon, Kyle. I hope one day you can visit." I looked up at her wide-eyed, gaping, not sure how to respond. "If you ever need me, dear, you can find me in my garden." Her eyes danced with amusement. And something 8-year-old me was unable to recognize. "I must go now, Kyle. Your mother wouldn't like to know we were chatting alone." And just like that she left. I mustered a weak wave as she strolled away, disappearing into the crowd. 14 years later I still remember her face, her eyes. And now I can tell that, beneath those lively eyes of hers, I saw depression, sadness, but most of all, fear. I'm not sure what made Aunt Rosa look that way. It's been years and I've learned nothing about her from the rest of my family. All I know is she struck me with that look. She's always been in the back of my mind. So yeah, that's why I'm out here in her mansion as I write this. Well anyways, now that we've gotten that little introduction and backstory out of the way, you know why I'm here, and a bit about who I am. So you can see why I was already a little freaked out heading into this mysterious town on my own. It really didn't help when I asked the driver my family had hired to take me up to Traskville. He gave me a weird look and said, "We don't drive up there. Maybe you can find an Uber or a bus." And just like that, he dropped me off. I decided there was a good chance I would be there for a while anyways and rented a car. The journey was pretty long, about 3.5 hours from Denver, but it was beautiful, and despite the lump of dread buried within me, the drive went by quickly. As I finally drove into the town, I saw that it looked, well, normal. There was a grocery store, gas station, and a couple restaurants where the main road entered the town. Around it were various buildings and offices you would see in any decent establishment, a small library, an old-looking clinic, a quiet police station, a hospitable church, a very average drugstore, a cozy coffee shop, a warm bakery, and even a butcher's shop. None of it felt out of place, and frankly none of it looked wrong. There were a few locals here and there, going about their days, all of which looked like very regular people. While my car crawled through downtown, I couldn't help but feel a sense of ease. The place just seemed safe. Driving up from downtown into the woods with the big mansions brought my nerves straight back. Every few minutes I'd pass another one, a looming mansion, or a beautiful mountain retreat. Every single one was dark. No lights. No cars. Nobody. I understand that rich people don't spend their whole year here, but it was eerie. When I finally turned into my late aunt's long driveway, I couldn't tell if I was feeling more relief or dread. Just like the others, the house was completely abandoned. Someone could have said it was a newly built house, heck, a newly built neighborhood, and I'd have believed them. As I stared up at the cold, dark estate, I found it hard to believe my aunt, the woman that had kindly smiled down at 8-year-old me, had lived her dying years alone here. The place was huge, easily 8,000 to 12,000 square feet, and 3 stories with a basement. It had a sleek Victorian style of architecture, lots of cylindrical components, steep arching roofs, and plenty of windows. It was a mountainy gray and brown, with a fine mixture of stone, wood, and whatever else they build these things with. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't somehow beautiful. Walking up to the doors was honestly nerve-wracking, but I told myself it was a stupid house and pushed through the door. Within the house everything looked pretty much normal. Albeit normal for a mountain mansion. A huge entrance room with a 2-story ceiling and a staircase ascending above, a hallway leading back to a lounge looking out back, another one leading left to the kitchen and dining room, and a mudroom plus garage to my right. I decided I'd start with looking in the kitchen and dining room area. That is, looking for the will, my first order of priority. Aunt Rose's will is very important to my family, especially because she rarely held contact for the past decade following her wife's death. My father suspects the two had some serious ventures unknown to the rest of the family. Frankly, I don't care. I'm more interested in finding out what the fuck was up with her secrecy, her seclusion, the bad blood between her and her siblings.